Before I begin this video, it is very important that you understand the meaning of the terms, DNA, and GMO. The understanding of these two terms is critical to understanding this video. These two terms are subjects that are identified at the atomic level. The atom, which is an individual element, is the smallest single entity of matter that we know to exist. The atom is the base that forms all structures of life. The atom combines with other atoms to create molecules. And those molecules combine to create elements. And those elements combine to create life. These atoms, like all other elements that create life, combine with other elements using the universal law of combination. This means that in nature, only compatible elements combine to create new elements. And it is within the cell that the universal law of combination exists. It is the nucleus of the cell that contains the instructions for the cell to combine with another cell. Now, let's see what these three-letter words really mean. DNA, it stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. It is a chemical made up of two long molecules arranged in a spiral, like a twisted ladder. They call this the double helix structure. There is DNA in the nucleus of every cell. DNA carries genetic information, or traits, that have been passed from previous generations. The nucleus possesses all the instructions that a living organism needs to grow, reproduce and function. Changing an organism's DNA will cause the organism to not grow, reproduce and function as it should in nature. Now GMO, or genetically modified organism, is a plant, animal, microorganism or other organism whose genetic makeup has been modified using genetic engineering or transgenic technology. This creates combinations of plant, animal, bacterial and virus genes that do not occur in nature. There are ancient biblical texts that profess that the entity we call God is not a man, and does not change its mind. These same ancient texts also profess that the Most High does not dwell in things, or idols, created by the hands of men. These ancient texts suggest that after the Creator God created the earth, God saw it and blessed it and proclaimed it as being very good. In the Bible, if you read Genesis 1st chapter, verses 29 to 31, you will find the command that the Creator gave to all life on this planet, for food consumption. And God said to the man, "Behold, I have given you every herb yielding seed, which is on the face of this earth. And every tree, in which its fruit yields seeds, that will produce a tree of the same kind. To you it shall be for food. And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the heavens, and everything that creeps upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for food." And it was so. Now, the Creator saw everything that was created, and proclaimed it as being very good. Is this correct? Then why, if the Creator created a very good food source for all living creatures, do humans believe that man can improve on the Creator's creations? No man can improve on God's creation. But we still allow men to try. And we never ask men why. No man can create life. But we still allow men to try. And not ask men why. But understand this. Man can only create death and suffering. I ask this very important question. If God, the all-powerful, all-knowing, perfect being, the Creator of heaven and earth and all that they contain, looked down on its creation and declared it as being very good, why then do humans challenge God and disobey the Creator's commands and believe otherwise? Why do imperfect men believe they can make God's perfect creation better? He cannot, and I will explain why. Understand this. The entity that humans call God is life. God is the creator and giver of life. All living organisms have life, thus all living organisms possess the spirit of life or the spirit of God. God is the creator and giver of life. Thus, if there is no life in the organism, there can be no God in the organism, because God is life. Man is not God, and thus cannot create or give life. Man can only create and give suffering and death. Now in the second chapter of Genesis, verses 15 to 17, reads as follows. And God took the man, and put him into the Garden of Eden to dress it, and to keep it. You should understand that the garden that is mentioned, is Mother Earth. It goes on to say. And God commanded the man, saying. Of every tree of the garden you may freely eat. But the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you shall not eat of it. For on the day that you eat from the tree, you will surely die. Genesis 2nd chapter and the 6th verse explains why. It reads. And out of the earth God made to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight, and good for food. Now this means that every tree that is either pleasant to the sight, or good for food, was created by the Creator God. It continues to say, "The tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was also in the midst of the garden." Now understand this. God is life, and God is also the creator and giver of life. Thus, the tree of life is from, and of, God. And thus, was planted, by God. We also know from Scripture, that God is light, and that no darkness exists within God. We also know that the light it speaks of, is the light that gives life to all men. Thus, the knowledge, of good, is from God. So where does the knowledge of evil come from? If God is good, and the creator of everything that is good, then the knowledge of evil must be derived from within men. From the minds of men. From the imagination of men. This would suggest that men have the ability to create and distribute evil, and humans should not consume the knowledge that creates evil, that is created by, and in, the imagination of men. You should also be aware that Acts, 7th chapter, 48th verse reads, "The Most High does not dwell in houses made with human hands." This means that God does not live, or exist, in anything man-made. These are the final biblical references I will use for this argument. I will point out that this is the only time, that I am aware of, that the Creator was sorry for the creation and existence of organisms of creation. This statement is also referenced in Genesis, 6th chapter, verses 5 to 7. It reads, "And God saw the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of man's heart was only evil continually. And God was repentant that it had made man on earth, and was grieved in its heart. Then God said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the dirt." For God was repentant, or sorry, for the creation of men. The Creator defines man's imagination of consisting only of evil thoughts continually. This suggests that man's imagination is the place where evil resides and where it is also created. This can be interpreted as, man is the only creature created by the Creator that has the ability to create and distribute non-truth instead of truth. This means that man has the ability to lie and mislead other living organisms from the truth. Or plainly, men can lie. Now, let's examine the events that lead to the human creation, sales, distribution, and consumption of man-made genetically modified organisms. This is how it started. Europe, 1823. The French chemist Paul Sabatier creates a new process that adds hydrogen to vegetable oil during its production process. Eventually the chemist shares his new creation with other Europeans. Over time, the Europeans soon discover that by adding hydrogen to vegetable oil increases the shelf life of the foods containing the hydrogenated oil. The oil becomes a big hit in Europe, and by the mid-1800s it was common practice, in Europe, to use vegetable oil containing added hydrogen. But in 2006, United States scientists discover that adding hydrogen to vegetable oil during its production process causes the creation of trans fats to form within the oil. These scientists also discover that the created trans fats negatively affects human cholesterol and can drastically increase the risk of heart disease in humans. Unfortunately, this warning did not affect the use and consumption of the created toxins by humans living in the U.S. Next event. Austria, 1866. Gregor Mendel, an Austrian monk, identifies the basic process of genetics. This allowed him to identify the principles of plant hybridization, which led to the development of the principles of creating hybrid plants. Hybrid plants are plants that have been cross-pollinated with a different species of plant. Cross-species pollination does not, naturally, occur in nature. United States, 1922. The first hybrid corn is created, and sold, for animal consumption. United States, 1940. American plant breeders learn to use radiation and chemicals to change the DNA of organism. Next. United States, 1953. Rosalind Franklin, James Watson, and Francis Crick identify the structure of DNA, known as the double helix structure. United States, 1959. Richard O. Marshall and Earl R. Cool create an enzyme that rearranges the composition of glucose in corn syrup into fructose. United States, 1968. Because of the high cost of sugar, high fructose corn syrup is used to help produce low-cost foods for the consumption of low-income families. But today's science has determined that the consumption of high fructose corn syrup is linked to type 2 diabetes, and the increased risk of heart disease, in humans. This period is very important in understanding how man-made organisms became a problem to humans. United States 1970s. High fructose corn syrup is introduced to the processed food and soft drink industry. United States 1973. The origins of modern genetic manipulation. Biochemist Herbert Boyer and Stanley Cohen developed the fundamental principles of genetic engineering. United States 1977. USDA introduces new dietary recommendations, which includes recommendations for GMO sugar, sucrose, and starch. USDA changes its method for determining nutritional values of the nutrients in food. Instead of testing foods, they decide to use standardized values of nutrients for similar foods. For example, the known nutrient values of a seeded watermelon was used as the nutritional values of a GMO seedless watermelon. USDA reclassifies all sugars and carbohydrates. USDA classifies man-made, sucrose and starch as being sugars, then reclassifies all sugars as being carbohydrates. United States 1982. FDA approves first GMO product. Human insulin, for the treatment of diabetes. United States 1986. Federal government established framework for biotechnology regulations. United States 1990s. First wave of FDA-approved GMO foods, for human consumption. Summer squash, soybeans, cotton, corn, papayas, tomatoes, potatoes, canola. United States 1992. FDA makes policies and guidelines for GMO plants. United States 1994. First FDA-approved GMO tomato sold for human consumption. United States 1999. GMO crops dominate. It is estimated that over 100 million acres of farmland worldwide is used for the cultivation of GMO plants. U.S. Health Organization's estimates that the average American adult consumes more than 4 gallons of high fructose corn syrup a year. United States 2005. GMO, alfalfa and sugar beets are produced for animal and human consumption. 2010. World Health Organization issues warning. High fructose corn syrup linked to obesity and diabetes. 2011. Bt toxin, an ingredient found in pesticides used on GMO plants, is found in humans. United States 2015. FDA approves first GMO animal for human food consumption. GMO salmon. United States 2017. FDA approves the sale of GMO apples. Now, here are more genetically modified plants for human consumption. Eggplants, pineapples, sugarcane, bananas, rice, wheat, oats, peas, carrots, yeast, seedless grapes, seedless watermelon and beans. These are hybrid plants. Sweet potatoes, broccoli and cauliflower. Understand this. Man has genetically modified a large majority of all the natural plants that humans consume. Be not surprised if humans are next to be modified, if we have not been modified already. And if so, we no longer function as the Creator God intended for us to function, and we function now in the manner in which men desire for us to function. If the Creator, who is said to be all-powerful, all-seeing, all-knowing perfect being that gives us light, life and love, created for all humans this garden we call Earth, with everything that is needed to live in peace, harmony and good health. Why do humans allow man to change the perfect elements of the garden paradise that was created, approved and blessed by the Creator God, to convert the garden into a place of disease, suffering, servitude and death? Why do humans allow man to substitute his creations, that cause sickness and death, for the Creator's creations of life? Why do humans believe that the creations of men will give life to men, when man can only create death? Think on that. I can wait.